What's up? I'm Dan Fredenberg, and this is another Chance Encounter. Hey, what's up? I'm Dan Fredenberg. I'm a commercial real estate guy. I'm from the internet. Power lines that are just kind of close. What's up again? This is Dan Fredenberg. I'm joined today with Yonah Weiss. How you doing today, Yonah?
What's up, Dan? Doing pretty well today, thank God.
All right. Awesome. And are you still allowed to say Happy Hanukkah? Is that yesterday and today and like other stuff, or is it like bad luck to say it the day after or something?
So we have eight days
Okay.
of Hanukkah. So we're still in the midst of it.
Okay. So Happy Hanukkah is cool.
Exactly. To quote Adam Sandler from the Hanukkah song, instead of one day of presents, we have 8 crazy nights.
Right.
There you
Exactly.
go. Remember that one?
Yeah, I did see that one. Yeah, that was really good. I've been rewatching some of his stuff, but that's not why you are here. And if you haven't seen a Chance Encounter before, this is the way it works. I've narrowed the motivations that people have for making their next commercial acquisition down to 5. So I go through the 5 and I say, hey, commercial real estate investor, which one of them's you? And then after they answer that, I go through the 6 different roles in a commercial deal, and I say which one's your core competency, or at least what you'd be most likely to contribute in your next commercial deal. Then before we get ahead of ourselves any further, Yonah, could you please introduce yourself for the audience?
My name is Yonah Weiss. I am a cost segregation expert, which means I work for the biggest national company that does this weird thing called cost segregation, helping real estate investors pay less income tax. And I really enjoy doing that. I've been on about 200 podcasts as a guest to speak about that really cool topic, and have my own podcast as well, Weiss Advice. I'm a real estate investor as well. And that's a little bit about me that you'll have to listen to the podcast to find out more.
All right, awesome. So let's go to the first segment then. I'll share my screen, but then I have to click on the thing, and then I click on the other thing, and then boom, why do you want part of an apartment complex? It says on the screen. And usually I decided to start with the motivations because newbies, they'll know the reason why they want to be in a deal, but they might not know what role they're going to have. So the first motivation that I have here is to preserve purchasing power. So if you are a family office and you rely on your wealth and the cash flow that generates to make your ends meet, then inflation is the thing that's going to be on your mind more than anything else. And so that's why you're going to be making more acquisitions like this. So that's the first motivation. The next one is my one, which is my background is in technology. Specifically, it's in e-commerce, mass marketing, all that digital tech side stuff. And one of the problems of being a high earner in the form of salary is you're paying the highest amount of tax you possibly can. So it hit me, it's like, well, if I pivot and then I'm on the GP team, then I'm being rewarded for my time and effort in the form of wealth and getting all those tax benefits from doing that. So that's my motivation. Now, the next one is the most common one, which is wanting to fast track your retirement. And there are 2 things that are implied when I hear fast tracking retirement. First of all, if you're in your early 20s and you're saying that you're fast tracking your retirement, I'm like, no, you're not. You have to have something to work with. I understand, maybe it's like a trust fund or something, but inflation doesn't really allow you to plan that far ahead from the way that lifespans work now. But the other thing that's more important about fast tracking retirement as an idea is it's kind of like an end goal. So this is the type of person who won't necessarily want to be hustling into their 90s, whereas the next group, they're so ambitious, they want to buy their entire hometown And those are the ones where they're looking to really build a legacy that's multi-generational and all that sort of stuff. And they're great to have on your team because at least you know that they're going to be working in the same direction. But the
Sure.
last one, and I know I've heard you say before that yeah, religion is more important to you than business. And I don't want to say irrational is a negative thing. All I'm saying is that that's someone who chooses this one, they're not going for profit just for profit's sake. Instead, they're probably choosing a sector of society that they particularly want to help, or maybe it's buying rainforest, or maybe it's to save animals, like who knows what it is. But if you realize that accumulation of wealth is the best vehicle to have the highest amount of impact, then there's a good chance that you're going to want to make some commercial investments. So of those five, Yonah, what combination of those best describes you? What really rings and describes you best?
The last one that you mentioned, besides for it being labeled as irrational, you may want to change that to impact, which is I think how you described it, which is probably much more in line with I think of the five that you brought up. That one definitely speaks to me the most, meaning the more money you have, the more people you can help. Not necessarily, the tenants in the apartment complex that you are helping alone. Obviously, any apartment owner can and hopefully does choose to make their lives better. But that's kind of that's very limited. But when you're investing in apartments, like you said before, you're creating wealth, and some of that wealth can go well beyond the tenants of your building. Obviously, you don't want to be a slumlord, but you can actually help a lot more people. Help yourself first. I'm a big proponent of that. You have to help yourself first. But to what extent? I'm not a big person who I'm not into. Let me rephrase that. I'm not into luxuries. I don't, have anything that is a luxury whatsoever. I never have. And so making a lot of money is not going to really change my lifestyle too much. Never has. And so the more money I could make through real estate, which is why I invest in real estate, is really the opportunity to give back more. So I think that one definitely relates to me the best. I do have a big family of 6 kids. And so, I'd love to help them as well. And be able to kind of align them. So the generational wealth is big, but I don't have any ambitions to buy any cities or anything like that.
Right, right. So yeah, that decadence isn't quite you. So if I pretend that we're actually at a studio and you actually drove up and you're just in a booth in the next room and the big stretched Hummer with the American flags and bald eagles, and I think people were firing into the air too. Well, that wasn't your ride.
Well, no, it could have been the Uber I took,
Yeah,
but maybe.
somebody else's. But let's talk about another kind of role other than a stereotype, and that is the 6 different roles in a commercial deal. So for those of you in the audience who aren't that familiar with it, this is a good way to recap it. So the first type I want to discuss is a repositioner, who's a person who looks at a whole bunch of different properties. And what are they looking for? Well, first of all, they're underwriting it. In other words, they're doing the math and finding out if the business works. But they also have to be knowledgeable in ways to get upside. And there are 2 main ways that people get upside. Number 1 is through more efficient operations. You reduce the expenses. I got these Benjamins going down the toilet here because the money is part of operations as well, including the marketing component to make sure that vacancy is low. And so that's one of the things that I've got on my resume here is that little piece. But if you've got these more efficient operations, you're making more money off of the property of that, maybe that'll cut it. It's not so common right now that real estate is so hot, but the other way that's really common to get more upside is to get a contractor team, make the place nicer, and then that way you can charge more in rent, and that's more money. So the only problem that a repositioner might have if they've got the contractor team and the operations team is if they're from the internet like me, then they're going to need a local. They're going to need somebody who can be there at a moment's notice because I can't. That's not going to be me. But
Right.
usually those are the people who you end up seeing being involved in the building. But if a repositioner wants to buy one of these buildings, they're going to have to go to a financier. And there are a couple different types of financiers, more than just the bank. There's also capital raisers, but capital raisers have to have something else on the go to legally be part of the GP team. But the repositioners will say, hey, financier, hey, bank, I want to buy this property and it's worth millions of dollars, tens of millions of dollars. Can you loan me, say, tens of millions of dollars so I can pick it up? And they'll be like, okay, here's the property. That's all cool. But who's your sponsor? And that's the one that doesn't usually come out in most coaching programs for quite some time. It's a sponsor is somebody who owns a similar asset. So if Elon Musk wants to buy a 350 unit apartment complex and get a loan, they're going to need somebody in the fold who already owns a 350 unit apartment complex. But if you have that, you have some liquidity, and you have a balance sheet of at least the amount of the loan, you have now put together a commercial real estate deal. So those are the 6 different roles, Yonah. And could you please describe your core competency or what you'd be most likely to contribute on that die?
Sure. You don't want to just roll the die and see where it comes out. No, it's
Uh,
not going to happen.
I,
It's not
I
going
got a 4.
to happen. I'll choose. I think I'm more likely to be the financier, meaning bringing capital to the table. And as you mentioned, a capital raiser, which is something I do have experience with. Usually, in order to be part of the deal as a general partner, not just a limited partner, but a general partner, you need to bring something else to the table as well, be involved in some other capacity. So, I've been involved in the deals that I have participated in with that capacity as, helping, doing some marketing, doing some investor relations, and just kind of learning the skills. So participating whenever things are dealing with certain vendors, things like that, like the cost segregation guy, I can deal with that. The title insurance, that's also my company deals with that. So those are things that I can handle and, kind of add value to the team by doing that.
Right, right. Yeah. And that's something that comes in. Like if you have any, like, unless you're a local, then you pretty much have to have a real good grip on how the whole die works, because otherwise it's just going to end up falling apart and you're looking people in the eye and saying like, oh yeah, this is the good idea. And you don't know. So you really have to understand them forwards and backwards if you're doing anything remote based. But as far as properties, and I know that some people, they say bet on the jockey, bet on the operator instead of the individual property. But
Right.
as far as people in the audience, maybe they already have something in hand. I like to ask people what their buy box is. In other words, what's their ideal property in terms of geographic areas, unit count, and class. So what would those be for you?
Yeah, I'm less concerned about that and more concerned about, like you said, the jockey. I'm betting on the jockey more than anything else. Although, because of the experience that I have had, I am more partial to certain locations. For example, the Southeast, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, specifically Tennessee. Those are areas that I have looked extensively at. I know a lot of I'm familiar with a lot of the markets there. I've visited, and I like some of the markets there where they are continuously growing. The population growth, the job growth, and it has been on the incline for quite some time, and I see it to continue that way. So in terms of that, that's the location. In terms of asset type, we're talking about multifamily, certainly something good. I've invested in self-storage as well, which is something that I feel very strongly in terms of the strength of that asset class
Mm-hmm.
in the right locations. But for multifamily, the bigger the deal, the better. Class A is always good. Class B and C can be good depending on the operator. And like I said, the bigger the better. So over 100 units is usually where it makes most sense financially, from a larger capital raise and a larger team coming together.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And you have your podcast. We met through LinkedIn. I've been on a couple of your challenges. And what's the best way to reach out to you? Is it through LinkedIn or Facebook, or do you have a website that's better, or finding your podcast, or?
Yeah, all the above. LinkedIn is the best place. If I check that, actually respond usually faster than email to LinkedIn messages if they're relevant. But send a connection request that way. You can go to yonahweiss.com also and find out more about me and the Weiss Advice podcast.
All right, awesome, awesome. And if you don't know me, again, I mentioned I'm Dan Fredenberg. My background is in list segmentation and big data, but that's from all of the tech stuff that I had to do, which is in lead capture and online sales funnels. But I do have a favor to ask you, which is under my left hand somewhere. You'll see a red button that makes me sad, and if you click on it, it'll be gray. It'll be gray, and I won't be sad anymore, because that means YouTube pays for these videos instead of me, and that is much, much better. So pretty pleased with Sugar on Top. Make sure you subscribe so that YouTube pays for these. And Yonah, this has been absolutely fantastic having you and getting to know you a little bit better.
Thank you, Dan. It's been a pleasure. I really appreciate you having me on.
Awesome. Thanks.